This program is supported by SMC Global Power, Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation. We think customers. RJK Services Manpower Agency Corporation, Stark Molecular Laboratory, North Luzon Express Terminal.
Thousands of jellyfish have invaded Italy's Trieste coast, which experts say is an exceptional phenomenon.
Researchers said it is the strong Bora wind which has been pushing the jellyfish toward the shore. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am CJ Hirro.
And I'm Nina Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
2 months into war, Russian President Vladimir Putin tells UN chief he still has hope for peace negotiations with Ukraine. Female suicide bomber kills 3 Chinese and 1 local in Pakistan. Philippines reports first case of Omicron subvariant BA.2.12 in Baguio City. Myanmar junta court convicts Aung San Suu Kyi of corruption, according to a source. And actor Robert Pattinson confirmed to be returning for the Batman sequel.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow is ready to cooperate with the United Nations to help civilians in Ukraine. He said Russia is in favor of resolving the conflict in Ukraine with peace talks. But he also said the way the Kyiv delegation and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky behaved was depressing. Lavrov had talks with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who made a visit to Russia Tuesday. Guterres called for Moscow and Kyiv to work together to set up aid and evacuation corridors in war-torn Ukraine. He thus proposed the establishment of a humanitarian contact group, bringing together the Russian Federation, Ukraine, and the UN. Guterres also called for an independent investigation into possible war crimes in Ukraine.
Russian President Vladimir Putin told visiting United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres that he still has hope for negotiations to end the conflict in Ukraine. He assured Guterres that Russia is negotiating and does not reject talks. Despite its ongoing military operation in Ukraine, Putin still hopes that Russia will be able to reach agreements on the diplomatic track. But according to him, efforts at talks with Ukraine had been derailed by claims of atrocities committed by Russian forces in the town of Bucha outside Kyiv. Putin called the civilian deaths in Bucha a Ukrainian provocation, which the Russian army had nothing to do with. He also blamed the turmoil in Ukraine on an anti-state coup that overturned its pro-Russian president in 2014.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said despite a series of international efforts, Russian President Vladimir Putin has shown no seriousness about diplomacy to end the Ukraine war.
Engaged. We've seen no sign to date that President Putin is serious about meaningful negotiations. If he is, and if the Ukrainians engage, we'll support that.
While the United States would support Ukrainian efforts to end the war diplomatically, Blinken said the U.S.'s purpose is to make sure that Ukrainians have within their hands the ability to repel the Russian aggression and strengthen their hand at an eventual negotiating table.
Meanwhile, Kyiv demolished a monument symbolizing historic ties between ex-Soviet Ukraine and Russia more than 2 months after Moscow troops invaded their pro-democratic neighbor. Ukrainian capital mayor Vitaly Klitschko explained the decision, citing what he called Moscow's barbaric desire to destroy their state and peaceful Ukrainians. Klitschko said a second component of the sculpture will also be removed. The existing arch, meanwhile, will remain in place and will be illuminated with the colors of the Ukrainian flag. Klitschko also plans to file a proposal at the next session of the Kyiv City-State Administration to rename the square and the arch as the Arch of the Freedom of Ukrainian People.
The head of the United Nations Atomic Watchdog said Russia's temporary takeover of the Chernobyl site was very, very dangerous. During the takeover, raised radiation levels were recorded. Now levels have returned to normal. Head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, was visiting the site on the 36th anniversary of the world's worst nuclear disaster. Russian troops took over the site on February 24, the first day of Russia's conflict with Ukraine. They took Ukrainian soldiers prisoner and detained civilian staff. The occupation lasted until the end of March and raised global fears of nuclear leaks. Ukrainian officials have said Russian soldiers may have been exposed to radiation after digging in several places or at the site and stirring up clouds of dust with their armored vehicles.
In other news, a woman suicide bomber from Pakistan separatist group struck a van on the campus of the famed University of Karachi. The targeted suicide strike against Chinese people killed 3 Chinese nationals and their Pakistani driver. The bombing wounded a 4th Chinese national as well as Pakistani guard accompanying the van. In a statement published on Telegram, the Baloch Liberation Army accepted responsibility of the self-sacrificing attack on Chinese in Karachi. He added that the mission was the first to be carried out by a female militant. Karachi Police Chief Ghulam Nabi Memon said that a closed-circuit television footage from the site showed a burqa-clad woman walking up to the van, followed by an instantaneous explosion. This isn't the first time Chinese people working in Pakistan have been targeted by Pakistani terror groups. Last year, a suicide bomber detonated explosives near a vehicle carrying Chinese people, killing at least 2 children and wounding 3 others. Local media said that separatists have long harbored resentment against Beijing's lucrative mining and energy projects in the region, saying locals do not see the benefits.
A day after the fatal shooting of a Palestinian, Israeli forces killed another Palestinian man and wounded 3 others in West Bank clashes this morning. This was according to the official Palestinian news agency Wafa. The Israeli army said it was conducting counter-terrorism activity in the city of Jenin, but did not comment on any casualties. The man killed in the latest incident was identified as 21-year-old Ahmad Masad from the village of Burkin in the northern West Bank. A hospital official told Wafa that he was shot in the head. Masad's death follows that of another Palestinian killed yesterday when Israeli forces stormed a refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. According to an AFP tally, Masad is among 26 Palestinians and Israeli Arabs killed since late March, among them several assailants. During the same period, 14 Israelis were killed in various attacks.
A junta military court convicted Myanmar's ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi for corruption, sentencing her to 5 years in prison. An AFP source familiar with the matter said the special court in the military-built capital, Naypyidaw, found Suu Kyi guilty after 2 days of delay. Since a military coup deposed her government in February last year, Suu Kyi has been in military custody and faced a barrage of criminal cases. Suu Kyi had already been sentenced to 6 years in jail for incitement against the military, breaching COVID-19 rules, and breaking a telecommunications law, although she will remain under house arrest while she fights other charges. In the latest case, the Nobel laureate was accused of accepting a bribe of $600,000 cash and gold bars. She still faces a raft of other criminal charges, including violating the Official Secrets Act and committing electoral fraud. And if convicted on all counts, the 76-year-old could be jailed for more than 100 years. Journalists have been barred from attending the court hearings, and Suu Kyi's lawyers have been banned from speaking to the media. Coming up,
I don't know why people say that I can die.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris tests positive for COVID-19. Philippine Health Department reports first case of Omicron BA 2.12 in the country. And Singapore executes mentally disabled Malaysian man despite international criticisms. Stay tuned for more stories from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns. You're still watching Mata ng Agila International. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris tested positive for COVID-19. She announced this on a tweet Tuesday afternoon. The White House said the vice president is asymptomatic and has not been in close contact with President Joe Biden recently. She has been away from Washington recently due to a trip to California. Harris's press secretary, Kirsten Allen, said the vice president will isolate and continue to work from home. In her tweet, Harris said she is grateful to be both vaccinated and boosted. According to Harris's team, she would return to the White House when she tests negative.
Amid a slight rise in COVID-19 cases, India has approved 2 homegrown vaccines for children under the age of 12. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia tweeted that Covaxin, made by Bharat Biotech, has been granted emergency use permission for the 6 to 12 age group. It is already administered to children ages 12 to 18 and adults. India also gave emergency approval to Corbevax for children ages 5 to 12 and Zydus' 2-dose jab for children above 12. Corbevax is also already being administered to children in the 12 to 14 age group. Despite the emergency use nod, the Health Ministry will not immediately start vaccinating children younger than 12. Vaccination can only begin once the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization gives a green signal.
World Health Organization, or WHO, Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus hailed the lowest global weekly COVID death toll since March 2020. Over 15,000 deaths around the world were recorded. The WHO chief said the globally reported COVID-19 cases and deaths due to declined, which is very encouraging and good news. He cautioned, however, that the pandemic gravely affected the world's routine immunization programs. This has led to fresh outbreaks of measles and polio.
Globally reported cases. This week is World Immunization Week, an opportunity to highlight the incredible power of vaccines, not just to save lives, but in the words of this year's theme, to offer the opportunity of a long life for all. But around the world, the pandemic has caused severe disruptions to routine immunization programs, putting millions of children's lives at risk and opening the door to fresh outbreaks of measles and polio.
Tedros also confirmed that the Democratic Republic of Congo has reported an outbreak of Ebola. He said a second case was confirmed in a relative of the first Ebola-positive patient in Bandaka. Unfortunately, both have died.
Meanwhile, here in the Philippines, health authorities confirmed the first case of Omicron BA 2.12 in Baguio City. The Department of Health, or DOH, said it involved a 52-year-old Finnish woman who arrived in the country last April 2. The international visitor was not required to undergo quarantine when she arrived since she was fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and was asymptomatic. 9 days after her arrival, she experienced symptoms like headache and sore throat, and after undergoing a PCR test, she was found to be positive. She was reported to have gone to a university in Quezon City before going to Baguio City to conduct a seminar. 9 individuals were identified as her close contacts and all tested negative. The Finnish patient was isolated for 7 days. After her recovery, she returned to her country last April 21st. BA 2.12 is a highly transmittable mutation of the Omicron variant, which was widely spread in the United States and has also been detected in South Korea.
Russia has cut off gas shipments to Poland and Bulgaria after they refused to pay in rubles. The move was seen to further escalate tensions in the West. Underlining that precarity, Bulgaria, which is almost completely dependent on Russia for its annual consumption of gas, said it had received word from energy giant Gazprom that supplies would be suspended from Wednesday. Poland's BGNIG gas firm also announced that Moscow would turn off the taps, although its prime minister said gas storage facilities were 76% full and that the country was ready to obtain necessary supplies from other sources. Last month, Russia delivered an ultimatum to unfriendly nations demanding them to pay for their energy in rubles beginning April 1st or risk being cut off from vital supplies. The flow of gas continued, but the Kremlin explained that the payments for gas delivered at the time of its announcement would be due toward the end of April or beginning of May.
The world's largest drone maker, DJI, said it will suspend all business operations in Russia and Ukraine. This was a very public move by a Chinese firm since Moscow's invasion of its neighbor. Russia has been hit with an avalanche of sanctions over the war, and many Western multinationals have pulled out of the country. Beijing has refused to condemn the invasion, however, and Chinese companies have largely remained silent about how they will handle the impact of sanctions. In a statement, DJI said it is internally reassessing compliance requirements in various jurisdictions. And pending the current review, DJI will temporarily suspend all business activities in Russia and in Ukraine. The firm did not mention sanctions on Russia. AFP has contacted DJI for comment. DJI faced intense criticism last month from Ukraine, which accused the Shenzhen-based firm of letting Russian forces use its technology in military operations, including those against civilians.
A mentally disabled Malaysian man was executed in Singapore after losing a long battle and despite a storm of international criticism and appeals for clemency. Naganthren Dharmalingam was arrested in 2009 for trafficking a small amount of heroin into the city-state, which has some of the world's toughest drug laws. He was handed a death sentence the following year. His sister Sarmila told the press it is unbelievable that Singapore proceeded with the execution despite international appeals to spare his life. But Singapore court cited psychiatrists' testimony that Naganthren was not mentally disabled and had understood his actions at the time of the crime. Naganthren's body will be brought back to the Malaysian city of Ipoh for burial. Singaporean authorities did not respond to any requests for comment.
After new evidence emerged, a court in Texas granted a stay of execution for Melissa Lucio, a mother who was convicted of murdering her 2-year-old daughter. In a statement provided by her lawyers, Lucio said she's grateful the court has given her the chance to live and prove her innocence, adding Mariah is in her heart today and always. Lucio's case has been championed by the Innocence Project, which fights for the wrongly convicted. TV star Kim Kardashian, who also urged Texas Governor Greg Abbott to grant clemency for Lucio, made a tweet praising the court's decision to delay the execution of the case. Kardashian wrote on Twitter, "Best news ever." Set to be executed by lethal injection this week, Lucio would have become the first Hispanic woman to be put to death in Texas.
Days after a shooting in Washington that injured 4 people and left the suspect dead, the district and its partner agencies have created a Violent Crime Impact Team, or Vcit. The team says enough is enough. Rosel Feria has the details.
Government leaders and law enforcement in the District of Columbia have announced the establishment of the Violent Crime Impact Team, or Vcit. This comes on the heels of a shooting where a gunman used 5th-floor apartment as a sniper's nest to shoot 4 people in Northwest D.C. The shooter was later found dead in that very apartment from a self-inflicted gunshot. This was only one of a string of recent shootings that frustrated the Metropolitan Police Department chief.
There was a man in a wheelchair shot in the 7,000 block of Blair Road. All this, again, is going on while MPD is dealing with the triple shooting, while MPD is also dealing with the sniper on Connecticut Avenue. We have a man shot in a wheelchair on Blair Road. It's reported to us that that man got into some type of argument with 3 young men, and some person decided that the responsible thing to do was to shoot a man in a wheelchair. That is unacceptable anywhere.
VCIT aims to remove illegal firearms from the community and apprehend armed criminals. It focuses on more intelligence-driven operations and enhanced investigative abilities through partnerships between government and law enforcement agencies. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser says gun violence is a concern not only in the district but also throughout the nation.
That guns are now the leading cause of death among America's children. And this is tragic, and this is something as a nation we have to confront.
VCIT is a joint effort established by the MPD. Federal partners include the FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and the Drug Enforcement Agency. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C.
The local absentee voting for the May 9 national elections commenced with the Commission on Elections or COMELEC officials casting their votes. The poll body permitted 84,357 out of the 93,000 applicants to vote ahead of Election Day. Among them were police and military personnel, various government employees, and members of the media who will be on duty on May 9. The local absentee voters will cast their ballot manually and will only vote for president, vice president, senators, and party list representatives. Local absentee voters have until Friday, April 29, to cast their votes. For uniformed personnel and government employees, the ballots they have to accomplish will be distributed by their respective office heads. Their filled-out ballots will then be collected and transmitted back to the Electoral Contest's Education Department. For members of the media, COMELEC said they will vote at the poll body's office where they filed their absentee voting application to be supervised by local election officers. COMELEC Commissioner George Garcia said the Committee on Local Absentee Voting will hold the counting and canvassing of the votes at the Bureau of Treasury in Intramuros, Manila on May 9 at 7 p.m. Coming up, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson threatens to privatize passport office over backlogs. Venezuela appoints new Supreme Court justices packed with government allies. And an unusual density of giant jellyfish spotted in Trieste coast. All this and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Venezuela's government-controlled National Assembly appointed the justices who comprise a new slimmed-down Supreme Court in a nod to overhauling a judicial system that's long been criticized for its lack of independence. The Assembly chose 20 magistrates in all, 12 of whom were reappointed to the court. Only 2 are aligned with the opposition groups. The appointments followed changes made by the Assembly to the law governing the Supreme Court. 2 years before, President Nicolas Maduro pledged reforms to address the international concern over the judicial system's lack of independence. Lawmaker Diosdado Cabello was happy with the results of the appointment, saying 2022 is the year of justice in Venezuela. However, Ali Daniels, director of Caracas-based Justice Access, was quick to rebut Cabello and said that it is not true that there is a new TSJ. It's essentially the same TSJ. He added that the Assembly's vote shows that the government does not trust new faces in the judiciary and prefers to run the risk of maintaining the institutionality that previously existed.
Former U.S. President Bill Clinton said nothing he could have done as leader of the United States would have prevented Russian President Vladimir Putin's path to authoritarianism and his conflict with Ukraine. During a talk at Brown University, Clinton denied that his administration did anything to isolate Russia or antagonize Putin personally during the 1990s when his administration oversaw an expansion of NATO following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Clinton said Putin's desire to build a klepto state and dismantle democracy was not evident during his first presidential term. The Clinton administration's decision to expand NATO, which started as a Cold War-era agreement among Western countries to counteract the expansion of the Soviet Union, has been criticized amid the current conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Meanwhile, Putin has cited NATO's expansion eastward and the potential of Ukraine joining NATO as justifications to liberate Ukrainians.
A news source said that UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson threatened to privatize the passport office if it does not start delivering better value for money. In a cabinet meeting, Johnson pointed out that the high cost of services was affecting families ahead of the summer holidays. The Passport Office is dealing with a large backlog as the number of new applications rocketed after the COVID-19 pandemic and Brexit. A government source said travelers have reported needing to cancel holidays and many families were being forced to pay for premium services because of the delays in the system. But the Public and Commercial Services Union said Johnson's threat of privatization was absurd when it is clear that the current problems are mainly down to increased contractualization of the workforce.
Facing an influx of relocations from other states and the rise in real estate prices, the state of Nevada launched an affordable housing initiative to assist its residents. The initiative is the largest single investment in housing in the state's history. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui reports.
Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak, joined by federal and state officials, rolled out the Home Means Nevada Housing Initiative Thursday in Las Vegas. This comes as the Southern Nevada housing market continues to rise as more people from more expensive areas relocate to the Silver State, especially here in Las Vegas. Home Means Nevada initiative will include $500 million from American Rescue Plan funds. Nevada lawmakers already approved the first $250 million last week. Here's Governor Sisolak talking about the program goals during his last State of the State address.
That's why today I'm announcing Home Means Nevada initiative. It's a $500 million commitment to lower the cost of housing, help people stay in their homes, and create good paying jobs. The plan boosts housing construction and home ownership opportunities. It will help seniors retrofit their homes to lower their costs, improve their property, and stay where they want to be.
State officials said that the initiative is the largest single investment in housing in the history of Nevada. Sisolak announced that the state is ready to begin accepting applications for new projects and encourage partnership with developers to turn these fundings into housing units. Behind me is one of the projects that has started. It is a 195 housing unit for seniors, which is reported to rent out starting at about $800 a month when the project is completed in 2023. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment here in Las Vegas is currently at $1,250, according to the rental platform Zumper. This is a 26% increase compared to last year. According to Las Vegas realtors, the median sale price of previously owned single-family homes increased to $460,000 last month, which is up 5% from January and up 26.7% from the prior year. Ana Cui, mata ng Agila International, Las Vegas, Nevada. Trusted, connected, on point.
A land free of gas-powered vehicles come 2035 is a goal California commits to reach. In Los Angeles, Joel Garcia tells us how leaders of America's most populous state plan to achieve it.
California lawmakers want people in the Golden State to get a breath of fresh air. That's something that's been harder to do in the state in recent years. Although residents still see blue skies, clouds, and the occasional downpour of rain, the air quality borders on dangerous. The American Lung Association says 9 out of 10 Californians live in areas with unhealthy air quality. And what's even more frightening, 7 out of 10 of America's smoggiest cities are in California as well. A major source of that pollution is cars and trucks. That's prompted the state to propose getting rid of gas-powered vehicles by 2035. Under the plan, by 2026, 35% of vehicles would have to be powered by alternate means such as batteries or hydrogen. That will rise to 68% by 2030 and 100% by 2035. To achieve that goal is going to mean some changes. More infrastructure is needed to support electric vehicles. Right now, there are 70,000 charging stations in the state. To accommodate the demand, if this proposal is adopted, the state will have to have 1.2 million chargers. The state will also have to make sure there is enough capacity in the power grid to accommodate the demand. One factor that may overcome consumer resistance to making the switch to electric cars is a rising price of gasoline. And once it is done, both the wallet and environment should benefit. Joel Garcia, mata ng Agila International, Los Angeles, California. Trusted, connected, on point.
The strong Ebola wind stirring the waters has brought thousands of jellyfish to the surface of Trieste coast and pushed them toward the shore. Experts say it is a sign of global warming. Researcher Valentina Tyrelli of the National Institute of Oceanography said seeing the density of Rhizostoma homo jellyfish, also known as the sea lung, was a surprise even for them who deal with jellyfish for a living. With the rise of temperatures, it could favor greater proliferation and guarantee a longer development cycle throughout the year. She said the sea is changing and it is necessary to observe the phenomenon to understand it better, to know where we are going.
A no fishing sign on the edge of Iraq's western desert is one of the few clues that this was once Sawa Lake, a biodiverse wetland and recreational landmark. Man and climate change have combined to turn the site into a barren wasteland of salt. The environmental department head of Muthanna province confirmed that the 5 square kilometer lake has been drying up since 2014.
نقص حاد في كمية الأمطار الساقطة وارتفاع درجات الحرارة. هذا عاملين مؤثر واضحة يعني أصبحت واضحة بالعراق. نسبة سقوط الأمطار في البادية سماوة أو في منطقة قريبة للبحيرة انخفضت بشكل حاد، يعني شكلت 30% من المعدل العام.
Additionally, nearby cement and salt factories have drained significant amounts of water from the groundwater that feeds the lake.
لأول مرة بتاريخ البحيرة تحديداً تتعرض البحيرة إلى الجفاف بشكل كامل. كانت البحيرة بالسنين السابقة تتعرض إلى تقلص في مساحة المياه الموجودة داخل البحيرة بالتناسب مع موسم الجفاف وموسم الرطوبة وهطول الأمطار وتزويدها بالمياه الجوفية. لكن في هذه السنة لأول مرة البحيرة تختفي بشكل كامل، وهذه إشارة واضحة لتأثير التغير المناخي على المنطقة.
The Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, a global treaty, recognized Sawa as unique because it is a closed water body in an area of sabka, or salt flat with no inlet or outlet. But now it would take a lot of effort and a miracle to bring Sawa Lake back to life.
European stock markets and oil prices rose after recent sharp losses, but the euro struck a 5-year low against the dollar as traders weighed widespread economic unrest. Elsewhere, Europe's Dutch TTF gas price briefly rebounded after Russia's energy giant Gazprom stopped gas supplies to Bulgaria and Poland. The two EU member nations had failed to pay in rubles despite President Vladimir Putin's announcement that Russia would no longer accept payments in other currencies, a retaliation for the West's economic sanctions against Moscow. Markets.com analyst Neil Wilson noted that traders were unpicking the familiar concerns about tech earnings, inflation, interest rates, China's lockdown, and the war in Ukraine. Asian stock markets earlier closed lower but suffered losses less than sharp than seen Tuesday on Wall Street. The downbeat mood over the economy has been compounded by weak earnings from some of the world's biggest companies.
Russian Industry and Trade Minister Denis Mentrov said in a forum that Moscow is interested in increasing settlements in national currencies with BRICS, or Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, SCO, or Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and Eurasian Economic Union. Mentrov confirmed that last year, Russia's trade with EAEU, BRICS, and SCO members grew up to 38%. He added that in total, those integrations account for half of the global economy. Mentrov also noted that Russia's interest in shifting to national currencies is pushed by hyperinflation and the growth of prices for exchange commodities in the West, as well as their influence on industry and economy. The minister said the shift to national currencies enables countries to become as independent as possible from the viewpoint of mutual payments for supplies of products and mutual cooperation. Up next, UAE vows rollout of responsible artificial intelligence. The Batman sequel confirmed Robert Pattinson to return. And a permanent bank holiday in honor of Queen Elizabeth II sought.
From next year to mark Queen.
For more stories from around the globe, please do stay until Batanang Agila International returns. Days after a SpaceX Dragon capsule splashed down off Florida's coast, another launched today, this time for a NASA mission to the International Space Station. The Crew 4 mission blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center, carrying Americans Kjell Lindgren, Bob Hines, and Jessica Watkins, as well as Italian Samantha Cristoforetti of the European Space Agency. The event was live-streamed on NASA's website and social media. Crew 4 is due to carry out hundreds of scientific experiments, including ongoing research into growing plants without soil in space. Another involves developing an artificial human retina. Meanwhile, the rapid turnaround time for SpaceX is a sign of an increasingly busy human spaceflight calendar since Elon Musk's company became NASA's mainstay astronaut taxi in 2020.
Having named the world's first minister for artificial intelligence, the United Arab Emirates seeks to become a leading nation in the AI sector. Stressing the importance of a responsible AI rollout, the UAE's Minister of State for AI said quality of life considerations are key. Omar bin Sultan Al Olama was just 27 when he was handed the cabinet-level position in 2017. He was tasked with launching the oil-rich Arab nation's AI strategy. Also called machine intelligence, AI enables systems to think, learn, and make decisions like humans. It covers everything from speech and facial recognition to commerce and autonomous cars. Olama said a big part of his job is instilling public confidence and avoiding costly errors when AI systems are put in place. The dangers of AI include inadvertently introducing bias against certain groups of people, which could prove damaging in areas such as public services.
The UAE was the only country that appointed someone to actually oversee this mandate seriously. So when speaking to leadership, they said something very important. They said, we want you to ensure that the development, deployment, and use of AI is responsible.
Olama's appointment came a year after the UAE also named ministers for happiness and tolerance, hoping to create happier society and promote coexistence. Over the past decade, the wealthy Gulf country has invested heavily in technology as it diversifies its economy and reduces its reliance in oil.
City won a breathless first leg match 4-3 at Etihad Stadium, but wasted so many chances in an end-to-end basketball style epic that it hardly felt like a victory for the English club. City built a 2-goal lead 3 times, but it couldn't shake off Madrid. With 10 minutes remaining, Aymeric Laporte gave away a penalty. Madrid used this opportunity to return to Santiago Bernabeu for next week's second leg with only a 1-goal deficit. But Real's Italian coach Carlo Ancelotti believes that this defeat leaves Real alive before the second leg. He also praised the great game of Karim Benzema, who scored twice.
Russian Sports Minister Oleg Matitsin believes that Russian athletes will be allowed to participate in the 2024 Summer Olympic Games, but Russia is ready for any developments. The minister told journalists that he does not see reasons yet for discussions of the possible lack of chances. Matitsin noted that decisions made by the international sports federations will be in force as a rule until the end of the year, so he hopes that there will be no problems. The minister also said that Russia maintains a permanent dialogue with international sports federations and is positive that they are willing to find a way out of this temporary crisis situation. Earlier, various international sports federations and tournaments such as Wimbledon imposed bans against Russian athletes.
Robert Pattinson will be back to wearing the iconic black cowl. Warner Brothers just announced that he would return to star in a sequel to The Batman. The English actor portrayed Batman in his early years of crime fighting when he was a relatively inexperienced hero. Pattinson's The Batman soared at the box office with $139 million domestically and a global total of $759 million. The film was also released on HBO Max, garnering views from 4.1 million households, according to Deadline. But fans may have to wait until April 2023 for more information about The Batman 2, as writer-director Matt Reeves said future details would be presented in a CinemaCon to come.
Adele is said to have parted ways with her creative team and hired a whole new one to continue her postponed Las Vegas residency. She replaced her long-term collaborator Esmeralda, or S. Devlin, with Take, That's Kim Gavin, and Stuffish. News sources said that Adele reportedly clashed with S in explosive arguments over the staging and production of her Las Vegas shows. She was also forced to cancel her Las Vegas residency last January due to delivery delays and a COVID-19 surge. A source claimed the Easy on Me hitmaker plans to restart the weekends with Adele shows at the end of July or early August.
Business leaders in the UK called on Prime Minister Boris Johnson to permanently mark Queen Elizabeth II's record-long reign through a national holiday starting next year. Our correspondent Ashley Espiritu from London files this story.
British business leaders called on Prime Minister Boris Johnson to create a permanent extra public holiday from next year to mark Queen Elizabeth II's record-long reign. In an open letter to Johnson and Finance Minister Rishi Sunak, major business lobby group the CBI joined hospitality and tourism bodies in calling for this year's extraordinary public holiday marking the monarch's 70-year reign to become an annual fixture. This despite suggestions of its economic backlash, although Britain lags behind European countries France and Germany in its number of annual public holidays. In their letter, the business leaders said they are supporting the creation of a new public holiday from 2023 as a thank you and recognition, not only for Her Majesty's enduring contribution, but also the service and kindness of millions of their communities, especially during the pandemic. The Queen, who last week turned 96, will celebrate her Platinum Jubilee over a long holiday weekend in early June. Responding to the letter, Johnson's official spokesman said he was unaware of plans to make this year's special national holiday permanent, as each public holiday presents a considerable and significant cost to the UK economy. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Ashley Espiritu from Mata ng Agila, international, trusted, connected, on point.
Despite chilling temperatures, spring has come to Sweden, at least for the milk cows. The Kusläpp, or the cow release, is an annual event promoted by the Swedish dairy industry. This is when the farmers free their cows from the barns and stables where they have spent the long, dark, cold winter. The event that warms hearts across the country shows excited cows jumping and running as they leave the farm for the first time and rush to munch on sunnier pastures. And what used to be a simple big day for Sweden's agricultural community has now become a popular family outing for its residents.
Here are some of our historical events that happened on this day, April 27. In 1521, Portuguese navigator Ferdinand Magellan was defeated and killed by warriors of Lapu-Lapu, a native chieftain of Mactan Island. For his part, Lapu-Lapu is retroactively honored as the first Philippine national hero to resist foreign rule. In 1865, the worst maritime disaster in U.S. history occurred when the overloaded steamship SS Sultana exploded on the Mississippi River. The incident killed some 1,800 people, many of whom were former Union POWs returning home from the Civil War. And in 1981, the world's first commercial computer mouse arrived, attached to a hugely expensive, wholly futuristic personal computer. The Xerox Star workstation was a commercial failure, but the mouse lived on with the release of Apple's Lisa and Macintosh computers.
And before tonight's broadcast ends, let us ponder on a quote from American football coach Vince Lombardi. People who work together will win, whether it be against complex football defenses or the problems of modern society.
Beautiful.
I know.
Well, to rephrase that African proverb, to travel alone, you go far, or you go fast. Travel together, you go far. So teamwork works.
Exactly. It's the best thing there is nowadays, yeah?
Teamwork. Proven, especially during the pandemic. It's a collective responsibility to get over this pandemic. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hirro.
And I'm Nina Ricci, Alagao, Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
This program is supported by SMC Global Power, Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation. We think customers.